How do you define good pacing in a video game? It's kind of a tricky question. Games aren't as straightforward as a lot of other forms of media. Some games are hundreds of hours long that you'll need to play over the course of a whole summer, while others are games you pick up and play in a single afternoon. Maybe each time you pick up the game, you're expecting to do something new and different, and you'll likely not want the game to be way too long or way too short for what it's trying to do. Regardless of whatever interpretation you end up with, I can almost guarantee you that Rayman 2, The Great Escape, will fit that definition. The fact that I try to be somewhat frequent with my video uploads means that I play games in very long sessions. Think of my circumstances as a predisposition to getting annoyed by bad pacing, which is exactly why I was so floored by how engaging Rayman 2 was at every step of the way. The level designers ensure to mix things up with lots of variety. One level will play out like a traditional platformer, the next may be an on-rails section, maybe a vehicle sequence, and maybe a level with some simple puzzles to solve. Now, having variety is one thing. All of the shovelware minigame collection garbage that you'll find while sorting through the used Wii game section at GameStop has variety. But the key here is that all of the variety doesn't come at the cost of quality. Each of the individual gameplay types that Rayman 2 will throw you in feels like it meets the bar, and that consistently polished execution is what will keep you always engaged from beginning to end of this 6-hour adventure. Rayman 2 was released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64 and Windows PC. The years that followed saw this game being ported numerous times to numerous different platforms. Some versions are really weak, like the PS1 version, utilizing full voice acting at the cost of a whole bunch of levels being cut. Without getting into all the specifics, just know that we're playing the Windows PC version here, available via GOG. But if you're looking for the optimal version of the game to play yourself, you may want to consider Rayman Revolution on the PS2. It's an enhanced port of the game that features all the voice acting of the PS1 version without any of the stages being cut, and is widely considered by fans to be the best way to experience the game. The PC version has legs, but your enjoyment of it may depend on whether or not you can handle characters talking like they're in The Sims.
They'll never fall shit. You wanted me more this too? Never stop.
You may have noticed from the footage that the series has moved into 3D. Rayman 2 may be the first game in this series to be made from this perspective, but the people over at Ubisoft got their feet wet in 3D by testing their engine and capabilities on a game called Tonic Trouble. Making this game before thrusting their beloved mascot into 3D allowed them to ensure that they got some familiarity with making levels and environments in a 3D space. Whether or not this was good for Tonic Trouble is something I'll cover in a separate video, but it's clearly a move that benefited Rayman 2. Rayman controls naturally in 3D. After a few levels, Rayman will regain almost all the capabilities he had from Game 1, but reworked to fit this new perspective. He can move around, jump, and hang from ledges. His ability to throw his fists have been replaced with him throwing out balls of light. I have to imagine that they wanted him to still throw out his fists, but just couldn't make it look right on the hardware, because just visually this is a clear downgrade from the original, but hey, it still feels good, so it's a small nitpick. Rayman can also utilize Z-targeting to lock onto his enemies and strafe while attacking. The combat doesn't really get any more involved than this, but it's okay because the enemies are very delicately placed throughout the levels. There may be like 3 or 4 enemies within each level, and the boss fights focus more on the environment than the combat itself, so you'll rarely feel fatigued despite the combat's simplicity. The focus here is primarily on platforming through the game's levels. You start off with a hovering ability so that you can correct yourself midair and glide small distances. This helps make it so that the jumps themselves are never too difficult, but the game makes up for that usually by having some other threat, like having the platforms fall out from underneath you as you're moving. There's also a hefty amount of swinging that you'll be doing. The swing points are placed in fixed locations, but your trajectory isn't fixed, so you can kind of swerve from side to side and let go at any time you want. It's a small boon, but I found that a lot of 3D platformers from this time cheaped out by not using real physics for their swinging, so it's always a plus for me to see mechanics work like this. There's a light amount of backtracking that you'll run into throughout the adventure. Thankfully, it doesn't feel like unnecessary padding, but instead, well-realized moments of you re-exploring old levels. Your progress is occasionally walled by how many lums you have collected in a given level, so your return trips will usually have you seeking out side paths you may have missed the first time. There's also entire sections of a level that may have been closed off the first time around due to you not hitting the required story beat yet, so even though you may play the same level twice, you won't feel like you're doing the same thing twice. Rayman also has the ability to pick up certain objects in the environment like barrels and plums. Barrels can be thrown to break down doors or activate switches from a distance. If you bring them to an open flame, you can send yourself flying through the air and get to places otherwise inaccessible. Plums are a way more versatile tool than you'd think. You can throw them on top of enemies' heads and use them as makeshift platforms. You can also throw them into liquid and coast on them like a surfboard. There's even a level where you're expected to navigate these plums through molten lava, which is a wild ride. I'm not going to go over all the different items and objects in Rayman 2, but I hope these two examples get their point across. A few simple tools are used in a lot of creative and fun ways, and that's something you can expect to see from Rayman's opening level until the credits roll. The subtitle of The Great Escape may be somewhat of a misnomer. The escape actually happens within the first 5 minutes of the game. Rayman and his friends are captured on board the flying pirate ship of Captain Razorbeard, who is attempting to enslave the entire world. Rayman meets up with his friend Glowbox, and together they break free and end up in a fairy glade. From here, the mission becomes clear. Rescue all of Rayman's other friends, free the captured slaves, and take down Captain Razorbeard. There are 4 different masks you will track down that will help return the power to Polocus, an ancient guardian-type figure who aids you on your quest. An area of improvement in the story department from the first game is that you will occasionally have cutscenes that brief you on what Razorbeard is up to at a few select moments in the story. It helped keep the end goal as a landmark in the journey, which, in hindsight, is something I felt was somewhat lacking in Rayman 1. Mr. Dark steals a bunch of Electoons in the opening cutscenes, and then it's just nowhere to be found until the final level, which is definitely not the case here. A whole lot of love needs to be given to Rayman 2's presentation. The cartoony character models and simple level geometry have held up despite the fact that nearly 2 decades have passed since the original release. Much like the first game, Rayman 2 doesn't hit the generic theme park platformer beats of traditional fire-themed, ice-themed, and desert-themed levels. Instead, the motif here is technology taking over a wondrous glade, and that's an aesthetic style that carries the general feeling here throughout the whole game. And though I don't think I can put quite to words the quality of the music as well as I can other areas of the game, you've probably heard enough of the tunes in the background to make some judgments for yourself. Regardless of the fact that the premise here seems a bit darker, with slavery being the end goal of the main antagonist, the tone is still lighthearted fun. Dancing occurs whenever a level is beaten, the teensies can't decide which among them should be king, and Rayman loves his friends a whole bunch. Rayman 2: The Great Escape is a tightly woven platforming experience. Its pacing from beginning to end is something that I think will please any gamer who picks it up, and its jovial tale of friendship will keep a smile on your face during the cutscenes. Every level in Rayman 2 feels like it's the best level in Rayman 2.
Now we're to say double time.